Hey, Broker Nation. In this episode, I have Asim Ali on my show, and Asim has a fascinating story. Been in the mortgage business now for only 24 months and has funded a combined volume of almost $100 million, $97 million, $3 million in his first 6 months, $33 million in his next 12 months, and then in the last 6 months, he's done $60 million, which is mind-boggling to me. Awesome guy. He's got great energy and a very inspiring story on how to build your business. And so I think you're really going to enjoy this episode with Asim. So check that out. Also, this episode is sponsored by Pioneer West Acceptance Corp. So if you're looking to do a private loan in BC or Alberta, call Stiles Stewart and the guys at Pioneer West. They're awesome. They've been big supporters of our community for a long time. So check them out at pioneerwest.com and tell them that you heard about them on I Love Mortgage Brokering. And check out this episode with Asim. Hey, Asim, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Scott. Thanks for having me.
So I'm excited to have you on the show. You have a very unique story in terms of the amount of time that you've been in the business and the results that you've been having. So I'm excited to ask some questions about this because I'm telling you right now, this is not a normal pattern out of the number of people that I've talked to. So tell me about your story, how you got into the mortgage business, and then maybe walk me through those first couple of years in terms of how that looked.
Yeah, so I used to work in collections, and I think at the age of 24, I bought my first house, and I dealt with a mortgage broker. Was really experienced, really good, and he walked us through the whole process. And I knew if I ever quit this job, I'm going to become a mortgage broker. And so the company started laying us off down the line, a few years down the line, and I took my course, passed the exam. Next thing I became a mortgage broker. And yeah, it's been an awesome ride for the first 2 years. I'm on July 15 of 2017. I'll finish my first 2 years. First 5 months of in 2016, I did about 3.3 million volume. In 2017, I did 33.5, I believe, million volume. And this year, in the first 6 months of 2018. I'm sitting close to 60 million already.
Right, dude, that's insane. So you basically 10x'd from the first year. So tell me some of the things you did. We were chatting offline, and you literally started the next day. Like, as soon as your license showed up, you were like, I'm in. So tell me some of the stuff that you did.
Yeah, so day two after I obtained my license, I started knocking on doors with for sale signs. I think it was the second door I knocked. Met this wonderful lady. We chatted for about 20 minutes, and next thing I knew, I was taking an application, and the file didn't go through. But that was a learning curve. From day two, I started getting out. I would knock on doors. I'll call the real estate agents in the area. I'll see for sale signs. I'll pump as many calls as I can to schedule as many appointments as I can. And, that's what I started doing.
And did you set a goal for yourself for like talking to a certain number of people a day, or was it just, you just have this internal drive that you just go, and you don't, or did you set like some kind of like barometer so that you knew, okay, this is what yeah.
No, there were no parameters, Scott. It was just like, I would get out of the house. It was in the 8 in the morning, and I'll just as many calls as I can. I'll call, past colleagues, accountants, real estate agents. There was not a set goal, honestly. Until this day, there's no set goals. I know some guys have set goals and it works for them. For me, it's just when I'm, if I get 2 hours in the day and I have to touch up with past clients, then that's when I will start calling them one by one. So it depends on the mood.
Right. Okay. And so what did you say? You walk up to this door, you're 2 days in the mortgage business. You're like, I got to think like, hey, I'm Asim. And so walk me through what you said, because I'm just curious.
Yeah. So I knocked on the door and I just, said, hey, I was just driving by the area. I live close by and I saw a for sale sign. How did your open house go? And I think she started telling me, yeah, it was kind of slow. We didn't get a lot of traction. And I said, yeah, it's July, it's summertime, people are away on holidays. And then I said, I'm a mortgage broker in the area. And she asked, which company I work for. So I gave her my card, and then we from there on, we started chatting, and I started asking her which bank she does. She has her mortgage with, and what she's planning to buy in future. So it was just, normal human to human conversation. And, at the end of the conversation, I said, well, I'm going to take your information, and here's my consent form, and I'm going to leave one for your husband. And I'll definitely look into your mortgage situation, and I'll let you know what documentation I need in an email. And so it was, I just talk to people as people, Scott. Nothing, no scripts, nothing at all. Till this day, just
when
talk.
You're in collections. So I gotta what did you knock on doors to collect, or was it all phone based?
It was all phone based, right? So, but you learn a lot about people there. I think all that experience I had over the years, because you get to experience,
rejection.
Financial.
No, I'm not paid.
Rejection, exactly. And you don't give up, right?
It makes you impervious to it. You're just like, I don't even notice.
Right. And you don't, and you realize it's no big deal. People reject you all the time. It's
right.
Rejections.
Welcome to my high school life. I was rejected all the time in high school. So, okay. So sorry, I'm just going to go back to the collections things for 1 second, just because most people would not have the drive, and so how long were you in collections in that business?
About 5 years.
Okay. So, and then how many phone calls would you do a day in that business? Just because I'm trying to get a sense of you're building a muscle. You didn't even realize you're building these muscles. So,
yes. So quite a lot, I would say probably 100, 150 calls a day. Yeah.
So you're making 150 calls a day that people don't want to hear from you, and you have to have a conversation. And so then to move into being a mortgage broker, where instead of taking, you're actually trying to give them something, you're trying to give them money, you're trying to solve their problem. It's probably oh my gosh, this is amazing. Because if I can help them, then this is I'm giving them money instead of saying you need to give me money, right?
Right. And, that's where, and, I think you've said it really perfectly. I have a lot of brokers who come to my office now to pick my brains. And I literally say the same thing, that, people need you. Definitely you need them too, but you need to understand the concept that, you're helping them, and they definitely need your service. So, the moment you start understanding that, I think your business grows a lot, because now you are more in control of the things you're doing in your business. Then, hey, what is the best rate? What are we going to get? Well, the bank is offering us this. So, this, you need to understand that service is huge. You being there, your knowledge is, the more knowledge you have, the more you'll be able to provide a better service to these clients. And, so a lot of people lack that. And I think in the beginning, I learned that right away, that no matter what, I know more than the people I'm interacting with. And no matter what, I'm providing a service, so I don't need to beg in any way, shape, or form.
Right. I agree. One of the things I always remind myself, or remind people that I'm talking to in our business, is that if you've been in this business for any amount of time, you have forgotten more about mortgages than the average client knows, and even the average realtor, because there's just so much to wrap around that. So don't ever act like my wife she was a mortgage broker for years, and she retired a little while ago, but she basically used to always say any monkey could do this job, and it's not true. Maybe there was a time when any monkey could, and a lot of monkeys did, but that is not the reality today. And so don't sell yourself short if you're so that's really good, because then you go into those meetings, like you said, you're doing these realtor meetings and stuff. You'll have a confidence instead of a oh please, give me a business kind of thing, right?
Right. So to touch up on that point, I had a broker come to my office last week. So he said, hey, I made about 10 phone calls and one yes from a real estate agent, as per your advice. I said, only one yes? I said, what did you say? So he started telling me the script. He said to the, to these real estate agents, and, he's a good friend. He was referred by someone. So I told him, I said, hold on a second. I said, dude, let me tell you, stop begging, because the script I'm listening right now, you're begging to them. You need to let them know who you are and let them come to you. Set up a coffee meeting. You don't need to beg. There's no reason to beg. They need you as much as you need them. You just don't know that. They may have,
Right.
a stubborn relationship with their mortgage advisor or mortgage broker at that moment. There could be so many multiple reasons. So don't bet, please. Just talk to them as you're talking to me right now.
Right. Yes. No, that's really good advice. Like, and it probably the collections training or years of doing that it gets you good at phone communication, just talking human to human with somebody who's that's a challenging profession. So good for you. So then, okay, 33 million. So what's the split of where's the business coming from? So you're obviously not banging on doors all the time now. So I'm just curious how you go from 3 million to 30 and where did the source of that come from?
So a lot of my business now still is coming from real estate agents, but a lot of it is coming from past clients too. A lot of that is coming from real estate lawyers. Some of it is coming from accountants. So there's a mix of, there's definitely a big mix. In the beginning, yes, it was, from door knocking, it was from real estate agents and, that's all. And some friends I knew, but that started happening a few months down the road when I became a broker. So, it has a big variation at the moment.
Right. Okay. And so what is your split, just out of curiosity? So a lot of real estate agents, some lawyers and stuff, but what is the split of that business from like prime A business to like B and private, just so that people get a sense?
Good question, Scott. A lot of it is A. I would say if I were to sum it up, close to about 35 to 40% is A business. 30% is 30% is B business. And then I would say about approximately 25% is private business.
Okay.
So, I touch upon all the markets.
So that comes to 95%. So then the other 5% is none of your business. I'm just kidding. I was just messing with you because I know you're just giving me like I was just curious if you tended to I've been finding more and more lately that the newer people that are getting traction tend to be focusing on the sort of the non-prime space. And so I'm not surprised that you tell me that, 60% of your business nearly is from the tougher stuff,
right.
not the AAA layups.
Right. So when I came into the industry, of course, everybody wants a business. That's the goal. You always think as a new broker, I just want a business. Mm-hmm. But I started realizing a lot of people are approaching to me. Credits are messy, income is messy, and I don't have options for them. They want to take out a little bit of equity to utilize funds for to pay out some of the debt or various other reasons. So then I started entering into the B and private space. But now it's just growing slightly more because my book is quite huge and the amount of people I work with is quite large. So I started realizing that, you can't just leave this business on the side. There's just so much of it and you have to entertain these people. And sometimes a B business will give you an A client and so forth and so on.
Right. Yeah, no, that makes sense. And so what is your, what kind of hours do you work in a day? So I'm looking at your
long hours, Scott, long hours.
Give me a number, like 12 hours a day, 14 hours a day?
I think it has a variation from day to day, but I would say some days it has a range between 12 to 14, 15 hours a day.
Right. And how many days a week?
Approximately 6 days a week. And then Sunday I work about a couple of hours as well.
Right. And okay, tell me about how you have assistant or some help now. We were talking about that offline. So tell me about who you have on your team and what do they do for you? And that's my first question. And then my follow-up question is, when did you decide that you needed to hire them?
Well, I think I decided about a year ago. It took me a little while because the person I wanted to bring on board, was a broker in the past. He left the industry, but someone I could work with, I knew. And it took me a little while to, convince him to come back to the industry, and and he did. So approximately 7-8 months ago, he left his job and he came join me. So now we have another person on the team as well. What they do is, they go over all the documents, compliance, storing data, sending out emails, and all that stuff. So, and sometimes, sitting down with the clients, to get commitments, paperwork signed, and all that stuff. I do the initial meetings myself. I take the calls most of the times, but sometimes I will pass on that to them as well.
Okay, so a lead comes in, most of the time you phone them. Walk me through the process in terms of, so I think you had mentioned that you'll have a short conversation, then you set up you try to meet people face to face as much as possible?
Right. So what we do is, like, let's say a lead came in, they call me, I'll talk to them for 4 or 5 minutes. I'll ask them some pre-qualification questions. Once I know the answers of those questions, and I think this is a good lead, something we can work with, I'll tell them, I'll try to bring them in as soon as possible. So, I won't give them a time 2 weeks down the road, and that's key. I'd like to see them very same day sometimes, or even the next day.
Right.
Bring them in, I'll let them know, okay, I'll ask them a set of documents, but the documents, I think they already have that at home, or I'll ask them, do you have these documents? So, for example, 2 recent pay stubs, T4s, 2016, 17, 3 months bank statements. So some of the documents, if they have them at home, I'll tell them to bring them along. And then from there on, once they come in, I'll take the application while we're sitting here, and we'll do credit checks right there and then. And by the end of the meeting, I already know where this file is heading, how much they're going to be qualified for, and then I'll tell them, okay, I need the rest of documentation. I won't promise them anything because I haven't seen the employment letters yet, and I have to still see some of the other documentation. So I'll just let them know, get these to me ASAP. And I see once they sit down with me, the trust is established, so I no longer have to chase them.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't matter, I call them or I don't call them, they'll provide the documentation because
Right.
they know me, they've sat down with me face to face interaction, they feel like they got something done, they came in, and so it's key for me seeing these clients.
Okay, so you'll meet them, and then so where does your team or your assistants help? So you do that initial consult. You sort of have an idea in your mind. Okay, here's what I need. Here's the document list. So where do they come into the process?
So let's say I input some of the data to initial data. The rest of the data will be put in by the team. Besides that, once this client sends in documents, the team will receive the documents via email, or if the client's dropping them off, scanning them, going through the employment letters, making sure that the wording is correct as client is stating they work permanent full-time. So we'll make sure that all those things are there. If not, then we'll ask for more documentation. But they'll go through bank statements. If there is some deposits which needs to be verified, we'll ask questions about that.
Mm-hmm.
And so then they do the nitty-gritty after. They'll input they'll input the data into the CRM system. And
What system do you use?
Well, I'm still using the autopilot, so nothing crazy, but I think I'm gonna start using Velocity soon and try their CRM system and how that works.
So I have a question for you. So you go out first, second day, knocking on the door, talking to some random citizen, get an application. When you started meeting with realtors, and can you remember the very first realtor that you landed that was like, hey man, I'm going to work with you? So tell me about how that went down.
Yeah, so I think there were a few actually in the initial weeks, but the first one, I picked up the phone, I called him, and I just called him and said, hey, I just saw a for sale sign in the area. You have a lot of listings in this area, eh? And he said, yeah, Asim, I do. And I said, well, I'm a mortgage broker with DLC, and I was hoping if you're free one of these days. He said, sure, why don't we meet tomorrow? So I go see him, and he invited me to his open house, which he was doing on a Saturday. So I just went in, and he started introducing me to the people walking in. Talked to him for I was there for a couple of hours. He was there, and I chatted with him. And I think that evening he called me, said he has a client who's looking for a mortgage, and can you see him tomorrow? And I said I absolutely can, and we just started working from there onwards.
Right. Okay. And so, what was your how were you able to build trust with him so quickly? Because that seems to be a problem. I see that's a problem people have, is they either can't build trust, or they get stuck in the friend zone where they basically never get, the people like them. Hey, I'll go for beers, but they don't send them business. So what was in your approach that allowed you to build trust?
I think I always had this confidence, and I think we were talking offline before that, and I tell this to new brokers as well. No matter if you're new to the industry and you think people are going to ask you questions, don't be scared. If you don't know the answers, just tell them. I'll get the answer for you. I'll let you know tomorrow. Don't give wrong answers. Be confident in who you are. You always know more than the guy sitting in front of you because you are the professional in that industry. No matter this real estate agent who's been in the industry for 10, 15 years, he's still good at selling real estate, but he's not good at mortgages. And
Right.
you definitely have more information than him. So it's a matter of just, talking and walking and showing him that what are you doing, and you have the confidence. You have the confidence. You'll put time and effort. The service has to be there anytime he calls you, especially when you're new. I don't care it's 9 p.m. or 10 p.m. at night. Answer his phone.
Mm-hmm.
If you need to see his clients at 11 p.m. and you want to go to bed, well, then too bad. You're a mortgage broker now. You need to see his client at 11 p.m. And those things will get you brownie points. And then, from there on, he starts sending you business.
It just starts to snowball. Okay. And so that was how you landed your first. So you basically did you called the guy, said he had lots of listings, liked to meet for coffee, met him for coffee. He invites you to an open house, turns into a new. And so then tell me about some, like, I'm trying to think of, because it just sounds too easy. I guess what I'm saying is that it sounds like you're making it sound easy. So what am I missing, or what is it like? Am I just stunned?
I think you're missing the times when I had sleepless nights. You're missing when I had my first deal and I'm walking around the house for hours and hours, just thinking how I'm going to get this done. So there's definitely a lot of crazy moments. It wasn't all walk in the park. I remember, my second file, which was a private file, on the very last day, the solicitor calls me at 4:30 p.m. on a Friday.
It's always on a Friday. It's always
right.
Like, why Friday?
Yes, and calls me and tells me that they did not receive funds. And I'm going crazy, and all weekend I just, so there were definitely a lot of crazy moments. It didn't happen overnight. The business took about 5 to 6 months to start growing. And
Asim, that is overnight. That is overnight for most people. It took 5 or 6 months. Like, seriously, you have no idea how hard I've had to. I know, and I have no doubt that you worked hard at it, you hustled. But I mean, the timeline is so compressed. But maybe part of it is you put in a lot of hours, right? So you were willing to, you literally day 2 of your license, you're banging on doors. And so you compressed what would take maybe 2 years, 3 years and just like by being so diligent. And then how many calls would you make a day? So in those early years when you're calling on real estate agents, 2 questions. 1, about how many calls you make a day? And 2, how would you decide who you're going to call?
So, like I said, I would get out of the house because anytime I left the house, I felt like I'm out to work. So it was a key. Anytime, the days I sat inside the house, I would be like, I need to get out. And it didn't matter if I went to my brokerage office or if I sat in my car and pumped these calls. But it just felt like, I was out and I'm there to do business. And I would say, Scott, I didn't keep track, but I call a lot of people. I call past colleagues. I call maybe 7, 8 real estate agents a day. I would,
So, okay, I asked you 2 questions on that. 1, so when you call a past colleague, somebody you knew from the collection business, what does that conversation look like? Hey, it's Asim. Just to let you know now, like, what did you say?
Yeah, so it was just like, introducing and letting them know I'm a mortgage broker now. Talking to them how they're doing and just letting them know that I'm a mortgage broker. And, then they start asking questions about what is the best rate. Of course, in the beginning, I realized everybody would just talk about rates because, that's all
That's all they know. They don't know anything else.
Yeah. And, they would ask you that question and I would then say, yeah, we can, I have access to pretty much most of the banks and credit unions and some other lenders. And I can look into that and, get back to you, or what are you planning to do? So I'll start asking them questions on, what their plans are, they planning, looking to buy, and that sort of good stuff. But I would call a lot of people, Scott. There was no specific number I have. It was just like, anytime I saw an opportunity, I went in. And, uh, I sit inside a real estate brokerage at the moment. So funny story, I can share this story with you. So I called this real estate agent, and I said, hey, I'm a mortgage broker, saw your sign. And he said, yeah, Asim, it was nice talking to you, but I'm busy this week. Why don't you call me back next week? So after and I hung up the phone. So I called him back the week after. I will make notes. And okay, this guy is semi-interested. So I called him back the next Wednesday, I believe. And I said to him, I said, hey, this is Asim. We chatted last week. How are you doing today? After the conversation, again, he gave me a cold shoulder in the end, but not a cold shoulder. He said, hey, Asim, I'm busy this week. Call me next Tuesday, please. So I called him back on Tuesday. And this time he said, okay, Asim, where are you? I think it was 11 a.m. I said, I will be wherever you are. He said, well, meet me at that Timisa, at that location. And I said, okay, I'll be there in 15 minutes. So he showed up, I showed up. And first thing he said to me, he said, you know why I saw you, Asim? I said, why? He said, because you're persistent. You did not give up. And he said, I just had a rocky relationship with the person I was dealing with before. And so thanks for coming out. And then after, I think, 15, 20 minutes into the conversation, he goes, well, would you like to come to our brokerage and set up an office there? And I said, when can we go? He said, we can go tomorrow. I said, well, I can go right now. And he was like, okay, sure. So we jumped in my car, both of us, left his car there, came to the brokerage there. And these guys used to work with another company, and they just set up a new brokerage. They brought close to about 30 real estate agents with them. And so I saw the managing broker, and I said to the managing broker that, I would like to join in. This guy introduced me. So he said, okay, Asim, here's the lease agreement. I signed the lease agreement right away. And
so you're talking same day. So you
same day.
You meet the guy. He's like, "Hey, we need some. Let's do it right now." Like you just like why wait? And then you go in and sign a lease that day.
Right.
Like, how long were you in the business at that point? This point?
About 5 months, 6 months.
Okay, just keep going. Sorry, I got some more questions, but keep going.
Right.
This is hilarious.
So then he goes to me. I said, he said, well, you can, bring the checks later on this week. I said, no. I can go home right now and bring them. I said, are you sure? You don't really have to, I said, no, I'm going to. So I go home, I, go write the checks, like bring it to him. That evening, I think I was painting my office. I went to Home Depot to pick up some paint, painting the office in the evening, getting furniture the next day, and I was there. And yeah, so I didn't wait for things. It was just like I got an opportunity, I had to do it.
You just take it as soon as it's there. It's like boom. Do not wait. Do not. And then you didn't take call me in a week as rejection. You just took it as I'll call you in a week. Call me next week.
Exactly.
Like you didn't let that.
Exactly. He was more polite than some guys who would say, hey, we're not interested in meeting with you. At least this guy is giving me a time. And the conversation wasn't really dry either. So I had a feeling at some point I can persuade these people. But I noted, I knew this from day one. Consistency is key. And I just try to remain consistent with the things I was doing.
Right. That's an amazing story. Okay. So then you move into that office in the 5 months. So what percentage of your business in the next year came from that?
A lot, Scott, a lot.
Because you did 33 million then next year. So what percent, just you don't have to tell me like exact, but what would you guess?
I would say close to probably 50, 60%. Because,
one phone call, actually 3 phone calls, one meeting. Yes. And then being willing to do it now and not waiting is
right.
That's flipping awesome.
Yes, and to the guys out there who are looking to set up their offices in real estate brokerages, just keep this in mind. It takes time to develop relationships. You have to be there every day. You can't be working out of home and expecting to establish relationships with these real estate agents. If they don't see you, they're not going to do business with you. That's
Mm-hmm.
just simple as easy as that. If they see you and you're chatting with them, you become friends with them, and they see your clients are coming in, and this guy's busy broker, they're going to start sending files your way. So again, consistency and patience is key.
Okay, so here's a question that we talked about offline, and your answer to this was like mic drop. So what do you say? Someone says, Asim, how long have you been in the mortgage business? How do you handle that objection that people are probably thinking?
I think that question people used to ask this question a lot, because I think some people would smell inexperience, which was okay, but I always gave the answer long enough to know everything. Until this day, I was sitting with some lawyers yesterday. They took me out for lunch, and they asked me this question: how long have you been in the industry, Asim? And I said, long enough to know everything. And they kept on laughing till the end. And they asked me this question 5 times, even before we were about.
They're lawyers. That's what they do. They're lawyers. They're going to keep asking the same question to get the answer. You're like,
right.
So you didn't answer it?
Right. And no, I didn't. I just kept on speaking long enough to know. I said, and they said, okay, we're going to look you up. I said, you still won't find out. And we were just joking about it, right? But the point is that, like I said, no matter how much you know, as a mortgage broker, you know more than the average person. You know more than the real estate agents you work with about mortgages. Not about other stuff, about mortgages. So just act as a professional. Don't sell yourself short.
Act accordingly. That's awesome. Dude, this has been an amazing story that you shared with me. And I love how you managed to land that office. So is there anything else that I should have asked you, or do you think that would be great for my audience to hear in terms of from our conversation?
I think for new brokers, because a lot of our brokers who are growing, and they're trying to find ways how they can grow. I think a big tip I can give to them is contact other mortgage brokers. Stay in touch with other mortgage brokers. The BDMs are great. We have wonderful lenders. We have wonderful lender partners, and other people who can help us in the industry. But mortgage brokers with real life experience, with real file experiences, with real clients experiences, if they become your best friends, then you need nothing to worry. And whatever they do, just apply it in your life.
Right.
Apply some. You may not be able to apply it all, because whatever works for them may not work for you. But you can definitely pick out a lot of things which has worked for them, which will work for you. And I think we were talking offline, or I don't know if I said it on the podcast as well, that I spoke with 2 brokers this morning, and I talked to brokers. Doesn't matter how experienced they are. Some are very experienced; they've been in the industry, and some are going. But there's always something they will share which you didn't know, and this has been a great help for me since day one.
Right. Which is one of the reasons I love doing the podcast. It's like everybody I talk to, there's some little thing. Everybody has a core genius. And I'm like, the other thing that you said offline that you didn't say was that you'd meet with people, you'd learn from them, and then you'd copy and paste. So you just take what worked and then apply and immediately, because you're action oriented, you'd immediately apply it and try to see how it works. So I think that's also good advice for anybody. Like, don't reinvent the wheel. Like, that's not going to, I thought that was a great line. I always say cheat on the test. I'm like, hey, if somebody knows the answers, just, cheat on it, but copy and paste sounds less illegal. So
right. And it's copy and pasting, right? Essentially, there's nothing illegal. There's better brains who have done more business than you have. Just see what they're doing and just apply it in your life,
Right. That's awesome. Well, hey man, I really enjoyed getting to know you. I'm going to have you back on the show at some point and see when you crack that $100 million mark and be like, Asim, what's going on? And you're going to be like, oh my gosh. So I'm excited to,
Asim, how come you didn't hit 100 million? How come
if you're at 60 now, then you're in a good spot for finish the rest of this year. So dude, it was awesome to chat with you, and we will be talking again soon.
Thank you, Scott, for having me.